Ever wonder how some financial services and fintech leaders learned about money when they were kids? Well, we've asked them 4 important questions to get their answers, and you definitely will want to hear them. Join me today as we hear from Jason Ray, President and CIO of Zenith Wealth Partners. Hey everybody, Mac Gardner here, author of Motivate Your Money, as well as the global best-selling children's book, The 4 Money Bears. I'm joined today by the one, the only Jason Ray, President and Chief Investment Officer of Zenith Wealth Partners. Jason, thank you for spending some time with us today, my friend.
Absolutely, Mac. Thanks so much for having me.
So now, Jason, for those who don't know who you are and the amazing work that you and your firm does, could you let us know a little bit about who Jason is and your firm?
Absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. For those who don't know me, I'm Jason. I grew up in Michigan. I've lived in Philadelphia for 11 years now, and I really work under the vision of a society where race and gender do not predetermine the ability to create wealth. I founded Zenith Wealth Partners almost 6 years ago now, really to deliver relatable, accessible advice to folks that have traditionally been left out of high-quality advisory services in the industry. We serve foundations, endowments, nonprofits, and the individuals and businesses they serve, and many of our clients share the same values that we do. So I've got 2 kids here in Philly, and I love living here. I've been a Detroit sports fan my whole life, but
I was about to ask you that, Jason. I was about to are you a Philly? Are you Eagles dude? Are you still a Lions guy? What's going on?
I'm definitely a Lions and Pistons fan, but I root for the Philly sports teams. It's hard not to, living right in the middle of the city, and they just won a Super Bowl. Actually, I think I've got my Super Bowl towel on the desk here.
Oh,
I
look at
can't
that!
believe I just put that up on video.
You did. And as a New York Giants fan, I'm going to not edit that out, but. But I totally understand, when you're in Philly and you're with the home team, and they're doing really well too. I'm happy for Saquon.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, here's what it is, man. Your firm focuses on financial education. I think as advisors, when you're in this field, we're educators. We really are. We're sitting down with folks who probably never got any sort of financial education, fortunate to have assets, fortunate to have things, and they're looking for guidance on how to manage it and for themselves and for future generations. So the first question I'm going to ask is what's your earliest memory of money education or financial education when you were young?
That's a great question. I mean, I want to break that question into like informal and formal, right? And I
Sure.
feel like my first formal education around money came in middle school when we had like a financial education course at my middle school in 8th grade. So I was, 13 or 14 years old. That's my earliest education of being taught about money, in the classroom. But I think I was getting lessons along the way throughout my life from, my family and the informal education related to, the cost of things. I remember early kind of like wanting something as a 4 or 5-year-old, and my mom kind of telling me, which I'm sure she had told me in the past, that, it costs a certain amount of money, and if I had any money. I remember thinking, man, I need to make some money if I want this donut. And that's probably the earliest education that I think is informal. I'm sure there were lessons being shared with me before that kind of period of memory and recollection. As I get older, I feel like those memories get, maybe I pull out the good parts and leave maybe the truth behind. Yeah, that's the earliest point. I'm curious when other folks that have come on or joined you, kind of when they start remembering that period of education. But that's where
it's funny you say that. There is almost always a consensus of it was at a young age. It was single digits. In fact, there was not a Columbia, I apologize, a study by Cambridge University that states that a child's connectivity with money actually starts as early as age 7. So it's a very common response is, yeah, I remember when I was a kid and mom or dad or someone said, hey, if you want that, you either got to earn money, you got to have money for it. And if you don't, you're not getting it. Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, we live in a society where we're consumer based, we're a capitalist society. It's driven by money, so you have to learn how to use it. You did mention something that's interesting, which is the formal aspect, because that's the one thing that we don't see a lot of. There are states now that are starting to implement financial literacy requirements by high school, but just your first memories of this stuff is when you're between the ages of 5 and 7, that K through 5 space, and that's really when we believe those memories should be formed and the tools should be formed. Which leads to the second question, which is, what did money represent in your home as a child growing up?
Yeah, a few things. I really feel that my house and the example my parents set, and I'm a only child, so I was watching closely. And they worked for money, right? So money was something that they worked for in order to afford certain things that we did. So I remember vacations being tied to money, right? Like, oh, my one of my parents got a bonus, and that resulted in us being able to take a trip. Um, I think also just the access. So as I got older and my parents, continued to compound and were working kind of my entire childhood to make more money, I recall just being able to play more sports. So like AAU basketball is not like, right, it costs money, right? Golf like costs money. So the ability for me to kind of get into those sports, I think, was also directly tied to money and the money that my parents worked for. And then I eventually started working for, when I was growing up, I started doing some caddying for golf and kind of earned, my own money. And, looking back at some of that activity, I feel like I was practicing entrepreneurial habits without knowing. And I think it makes sense as to how I've become an entrepreneur today because, I caddied. I ran the lemonade stand for all of the yard sales that we had in the area that I grew up in, which were a couple of years. So I had a lemonade stand out there a lot. Was shoveling snow. It snowed a lot in Michigan, especially when I was growing up. So
I have a family that lives in Jackson, Michigan, by the way. It snows there a lot.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I figured out ways to make money, and I think the example that my parents set of getting up and going to work every day and contributing back into our community and the things that were important to us, whether it be church or whether it be fraternity, sorority, whether it be community actions and activities. The money that they worked for was also able to help contribute either time or money to those activities. So money, I feel like it represented a lot in childhood, and I wish I could boil it down to one word, but I hope those examples, maybe you can boil it down to one word.
No, that's great. No, what I've derived from your answer is that money touches so many things in our lives. What I'd be curious to find out, and we'll do this in another interview, Jason, is how those messages have passed on to your children, and how that entrepreneurial spirit and those engagements with money pass on to generations, because that's what we believe with the game that we're developing is, hey, you know what, there's two sides to money. There's how do you earn it, which is the entrepreneurship side and owning a business and running a business, which you're going to be able to do in Berryville. And then, okay, now that you've got it, how do you manage it? Spending it, saving it, investing it, and giving it, which are the four functions of money. So you're right. It touches so many different aspects of our lives. But it's the message and how do our children and how do we get it, and then how do we deliver it in an efficient way, which leads us to the next question is, how do you think we should teach young people about money, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think the access to money is a great way to learn. So to your point about the four different areas of it, I mean, I think earning is a wonderful way to learn how to optimize your money and make it work for you and use it to achieve your goals. So I think giving young people the opportunity to earn money and learn, firsthand, I think is really important. I think looking back, just, the classroom learning and the formal education in my upbringing was not nearly as impactful as, the money that I saved for from shoveling snow one winter and blew it all on candy and shoes. And then when I wanted something a year later, I didn't have any money, right? So that learning, I think, was way more impactful than like what I got in the classroom. But I think the classroom and seeing other people in the way that they interact with money, I think is also something that is, I think, another important way to learn.
Agreed.
I think, yeah, you really, whether it's role models or peers or, elderly figures, I think seeing how other people handle their money is really, really critical to the way that you do it.
I couldn't agree more than that, and having those instilling those habits. But if my 3 kids were here, like, yes, Papa, we know habits, behaviors, traits. Good financial habits become good financial behaviors, become good financial traits. And so learning those habits early from someone who is doing good things with it definitely helps. All right, last question for you. You're in the money managing business, Mr. Jason Ray. So what's the best advice you've ever received about money?
I've gotten a lot of good advice from different sources, and I think the best and what's played out to be true for me is to be patient. I think good things come with time, more money comes with time, achieving your goals, objectives. Sure, things can happen in the short term, but most things play out over a long period of time, and being patient related to money and making sure that you're doing the things that either from the examples that have been set by other people or your own experience. If you can be disciplined and stick to what works, eventually the things that you are looking to achieve will occur. And I think being patient is hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. That's really the best advice that I think I've gotten.
Man, that's a mic dropper right there. That's deep. That's profound, and it's facts. It's simple, but it is not easy. Jason, thank you so much for taking a bit of your time today, sharing this. We're really excited to release the game, and we're really excited to have industry leaders like yourself, supporting this work that we're doing, and we're very thankful for it. So, anything you want to share with our audience as we close?
I just appreciate being here. I just want to say that you can achieve the things that you're setting out to achieve. So as you go through this course and play this game, I think, make.
And for sure, and I'm going to make sure your kiddos get a version of it, and they're going to be playing with it, and you give us some feedback as to how it goes, all right? All right, all the best. Thank you. The journey continues, guys. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for our next engaging episode. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and visit www.the4moneybears.com.